All right, what's up, guys? About to go over exactly who Mohamed Hadid is. He's the dad of Gigi and Bella Hadid, and how the guy basically fell off a cliff like a complete loser who's blaming others for his own mistakes.
Hasn't exactly had the best of luck with his real estate development career over the past couple of years. I mean, he's been involved in quite a few lawsuits. A few years back, his $100 million spec home at 901 Strada Vecchia Road was ordered to be torn down. His $250 million spec mansion was moved into bankruptcy last year after failing to sell. And most recently, Hadid filed for bankruptcy on a Beverly Hills project after failing to repay $55 million worth of loans on this project. You got to hand it to the guy, though. He's not exactly the type of person to give up. It seems like every couple of months we've got another story about Mohamed Hadid getting himself wrapped up into some new big real estate deal. Most of you.
So isn't it odd that how you notice the people who scream the loudest, right, about Israel are always the ones who can't keep their own careers together? So let's talk about Mohamed Hadid, the dad of Bella and Gigi Hadid. You see, this man loves to run his mouth like a psychopath about how Israel shouldn't exist, about how the Jews shouldn't have a homeland, right? And how the Palestinian cause is so innocent. But let's rewind this. This is the same guy who once praised Saddam Hussein. Yes, Saddam, the dictator who murdered thousands of Iranians and even gassed his own people. The Palestinians supported him. That's how they said thank you to Iran after all their support, I guess. But think about that, okay, just for a second. They cheered on Saddam as he slaughtered and gassed, let's say, all those Iranians, because when it came to politics, it's always the enemy of my enemy, right?
You guys following the channel for a while know about Hadid. He's a real estate developer who's made a lot of his fortune developing luxury hotels and homes. Plus, one of the reasons his face is in the news more than other real estate developers is because his daughters, Gigi Hadid and Bella Hadid, are two of the most famous models in the world. But if you just look at the career section of Hadid's Wikipedia, you'll see that he has basically had controversy surrounding his name his entire real estate development career. So I know you can't believe everything that you read on Wikipedia, but most of the sources on this page seem legit. Check it out. If we go down to the career section, so Hadid started his career restoring and reselling classic cars in DC. That's pretty cool. After that, he moved to Greece, where he opened a nightclub on an island. And I guess he used the profits from that nightclub to start developing real estate in the United States. He started doing that around the 1980s. But right out of the gates, he started having problems. In the late 1980s, he faced 30 lawsuits from creditors and banks who claimed that he had not fulfilled financial obligations. Somehow.
And by the way, here comes Mohamed Hadid, the innocent Palestinian, trying to lecture all of us on the West about good ethics and morality. Let me tell you the truth. This man is basically a fraud, a repeat bankruptcy filer, a failed businessman hiding behind celebrity daughters. Okay, so let's start with his Bel Air mansions too. He built a mansion so unstable, so dangerous, that a judge said if it came down the hill, it could take the whole neighborhood with it. I guess it was worth it for him to save money. Not like he cared about those people's lives. Maybe, I don't know. This wasn't me saying this. This was literally a judge, Craig Carlin. You can fact check me. You can Google it. Craig Carlin, Mohamed Hadid, quoted in a New York Post. The neighbors literally called it clear and present danger. That's how much of a psychopath and reckless Mohamed Hadid was. And then when the walls came crashing down financially, what did Hadid do? He filed for bankruptcy in 2019. But wait, that wasn't the only one. Not this bankruptcy in 2019 in Bel Air was not the only one. Let's get it going.
Although after all of that, he bought a $150 million Ritz-Carlton in Washington and in New York. He converted a hotel into a Ritz-Carlton out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. But not long after that, in 1992, he had defaulted on more loans, this time on a project in Washington. And following that settlement, Hadid closed his local office. He lost his personal home to foreclosure, and he left the Washington area altogether.
I know what you're thinking. Total glow up. What's her secret?
Yeah. So basically, thank you, Lindsay Lohan, for this intermission. So in 2019, he filed bankruptcy in Bel Air, right? In 2021, he had two of his shell companies, entities tied to Franklin Canyon Park, filed for bankruptcy like a loser. Okay. In 2022, another bankruptcy on the Cedar Block project, like a loser. And in 2024, Tree Lane LLC, you can fact check this. Another company he controlled, filed Chapter 11, like a loser. Okay. Bro, as someone said on X earlier, he said, it sounds like, or Instagram, sounds like a skill issue, bro. Sounds like a skill issue. Now, before we get into this, we've got the Best Buy commercial. Okay, I guess I'll buy some time. 4 bankruptcies, 4. Okay, and this is the man lecturing Israel on how to run a country. This is the man telling Israel it shouldn't exist, basically commit genocide under the woke pagan mob's approval and backing. Sir, you can't keep a business checking account from hitting 0. All right, let's get back to this guy. He's doing a great job.
In years, and he's had trouble with his career pretty much since the beginning. It's kind of a lot to follow, but the gist of today's episode, we're going over 3 stories. The first one, which is how Hadid just filed for bankruptcy on his Summit Ridge property. Then we'll get into, as of a couple days ago, he settled another lawsuit on his Beverly Crest property, which was also in bankruptcy. And last, we'll take a look at a property that Hadid has actually completed. One of his properties in Beverly Hills just sold last month for $36 million. Diving into our first story on the Summit Ridge property, Hadid filed for BK on this one after his entity in charge of this project showed that they have no money in their bank account. This property is located.
Like, I don't know how many of you are actually in the property business. Like I do lending for people who buy, fix, and flip properties. You can ask anyone in Beverly Hills. You can ask anyone in Los Angeles that is a builder that builds properties in Los Angeles. What sort of reputation does this innocent guy have of honoring his agreements?
At 2451 Summit Ridge Drive. It's a 4-acre lot in Beverly Hills that Hadid bought way back in 2015. Not super clear what he paid for it, but the asking price back then was about $7.9 million. So he probably paid somewhere around $7.9 million. But here we are like 9 years later. And according to all the reports that I could find, it sure seems like he's done just about nothing with this lot in all of this time. Hopping down onto Google Street View, unfortunately, this is the closest that we're able to get to the property. It's behind these gates, just a few hundred yards up on the left. What's up, guys? Scott from the future here. So I'm sitting here editing this video, and I noticed something kind of interesting.
Okay, so let's just talk about this, Scott, before Scott does his advertisement, okay? Fox Business covered this, okay? The Real Deal, a famous property magazine, highly credible. Shout out to the CEO, Amir, great guy. You can fact check me. Headlines were screaming, Mohamed Hadid's company, okay, is bankrupt. Now, before you tell me, oh, Amir is a Jew, he's Iranian. He's actually Iranian, okay? And he said this. His company said this. Nothing left in the account. Okay. So think about it. $55 million was owed to creditors. $55 million was owed to creditors. Nothing left in the account. And yet somehow on Instagram, he plays the role of this wise elder telling the Jewish people, one of the oldest civilizations on earth, that they don't deserve a homeland after everything Israel has done to help the United States. With all the innovation, countries from all over the world go to Israel, tiny Israel, tech powerhouse, known as the startup nation, right? All those countries that come, basically, that want the innovation from Israel's technology. And you know what Israel does? It gives it to the United States. It's called loyalty. It's called a good friendship. So now on X, when you see MTG hammering Israel, for what? They're hammering Israel at anything they can. The Middle East China wants the United States power influence evacuated from the Middle East. Next stop, invade Europe. But let's get back to Mohamed Hadid.
This story together and get a lot of my notes together. They've got a picture of the house right there, which is the house we've been looking at. Down here, they tell us that the place is located at 2451 Summit Ridge Drive. So if we go to Google and we type in 2451 Summit Ridge Drive, it's going to drop the pin on that same house that showed up in the Real Deal article. But I was kind of poking around this neighborhood and I realized this house looks really complete. And why doesn't it show that it's been torn down? Then I go over here and I'm like, oh, that looks a lot more like an abandoned development project. See, I think we're onto something. I mean, check that out. That definitely looks like a project that he basically just walked away from. He did a bunch of grading and excavation. Maybe he did some of those retaining walls, but then he just left it. It still doesn't look like $54 million worth of money was spent on that lot, but at least it kind of explains where some more of that money went. Because I was sitting here thinking, how in the world did he spend all this money when he literally didn't even knock the previous house down? The Real Deal reported that the LLC that owns this property filed for bankruptcy.
So this is the guy that goes on Instagram who basically praises Saddam Hussein and says Israel doesn't have a right to exist. And he benefits from the woke pagan mob who supports, celebrates, and adores his daughters, Bella and Gigi Hadid. Do you see the pattern here? This is literal psychological warfare that this guy is doing. You got losers like this guy with failed empires trying to protect and trying to project this like strength by demonizing the Jews. You're not based. You're just a useful idiot for the countries who hate the West completely. Israel, by extension, is a part of the West. That's how it's viewed. Now, it's been that now in this situation, this Jew bashing, it's been like this for centuries. This is nothing new. But now in 2025, it looks even more pathetic because the receipts are here on public. We're literally doing a stream going over the receipts that Mohamed Hadid, the psychopath loser, isn't a builder. He's a demolition man. He's literally a demolition man. He demolishes neighborhoods with unsafe mansions. He demolishes companies with shady LLCs. Then he demolishes his own reputation like a loser with every court filing. And yet the woke pagan mob listens to him like he's some glorified leader. I guess. I don't know. I mean, what's next? Nick Fuentes is going to register as a Democrat voter. These are psyops to destroy our country. That's why you see these sorts of people getting promoted.
Showing that they owe $54.6 million to a bunch of different creditors, but the property itself is only worth around $35 million. So yeah, he's really upside down on this one. The article doesn't spell out who all of the debt is owed to, but we know there's a guy from Switzerland who lent the project $3.4 million. Contractors who have worked on the place are owed around $260,000. The Homeowners Association says Hadid has back payments of about $66,000. And then the biggest creditor is this company called Skylark Capital Management, who is suing Hadid over not finishing the project, not paying his property taxes, and not making payments on his $31.3 million loan that he took out from them in 2018. I did some digging to try.
So what kind of jerk doesn't pay back the money he borrows? And then he goes on Instagram and says, Israel shouldn't exist. But here's a fact check, Mr. Mohamed Hadid. Israel does exist. Israel is literally thriving. Israel invents technology that the whole world, even in America, buys. They buy. Mohamed Hadid, you basically are at a point where you are existing in bankruptcy, repeated failure and bankruptcy, court filings. Your empire is built on sand, okay? And every once in a while it collapses all over. It's like the same movie, bro. I'm looking at a rerun of your failures. So the next situation, you see Bella and Gigi Hadid crying crocodile tears on Instagram about justice for Palestine. Remember who raised them? A man who praised Saddam. Mohamed Hadid told this lady I know, an Iraqi, that she should be more like Saddam. You know who this girl is? This girl's family was murdered by Saddam's people. This is what sort of psychopath this guy is. A man who bankrupted at least, 4 companies. A man who couldn't even keep his own neighborhood safe. And you know what the perfect metaphor is? Because that's exactly what this fake activism is. Unsafe, unstable, clear, and present danger. Bars.
Try to figure out who this Skylark Capital Management company was. I'm really just trying to figure out who in their right mind would lend Mohamed Hadid $30 million on a residential real estate development project after all of these messes that he's been wrapped up in.
Atera is the IT painkiller.
Yeah. So anyway, back to these commercials. I'm live streaming this clearly, so this is not edited. Okay. But while he hates on Israel, the people he hates so much, they stand stronger than ever. The Jews aren't running in this situation. No, in Jewish history, over 2,000 years, off and on, people turn on the Jews, right? But in this situation, there's the state of Israel. In this situation, there's a diverse empire like the United States of America. And in this situation, mobility has never been easier, faster, and more economical. Jews do not need to fight for their survival the way they used to with less capabilities. The Jews have capabilities. We have a right to exist. We have a right unapologetically to exist and defend ourselves in this world. And I'm sorry if that offends some of you. Now, after we finish this, okay, so we still got this. I guess I couldn't just finish that. All right. So I want to say one more thing. We've got Israel. We've got the United States. We've got a homeland. And we got the power to defend it. And that's something that these terrorists basically will never understand. Okay? So because unlike Mohamed Hadid's projects, which are basically abysmal failures, unlike his bankruptcies, unlike his fake virtue signaling, Israel is not coming down the hill. In fact, Israel is here to stay. All right. Now let's wait for this commercial. All right, here we go. Get back in it.
On Google. One is a LinkedIn page that says this is a privately held investment management company.
Does anybody know someone at Skylark Capital? If you do, please DM me. I would love to talk to them.
The state of California has a few problems with these guys. In 2019, they filed a complaint saying that Skylark didn't file its annual reports that it's required to. Then in 2022, it looks like they actually got their license revoked for failing to pay some required assessment fees. I did find out that Skylark is actually owned or part owned by this other real estate developer and investor named Zach Vela. We'll get into that in a minute. Back to the Summit Ridge property, there's pretty limited information available online about exactly how this all went down, but just based...
Zach Villa, I think you and I train at the same gym in Miami, man. Contact me, man. Or when I see you at the gym, it's important you and I talk. I hope you see this video, Zach.
On everything I've read about Hadid in the past and all my personal experience developing luxury real estate, here's the summary of the gist of how I think that this all unfolded. So Hadid buys the lot in 2015 for $8 million or so. And his dream is to probably spend 10 or 20 million bucks developing this luxury property and then reselling it for a profit. He spends the next 18 months or so in the design process where he's meeting with architects and engineers and designers, and they're just kind of deciding exactly how the house is going to look, what the floor plan is going to look like, what the features are going to be, all that stuff. Once everybody agrees on how the mansion's supposed to look and all of the specs, then they put together the plan.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't in the property business, the funny thing about annual reports, companies aren't required to file them. So in 2022, Skylark didn't just miss a deadline. They actually had their license revoked for failing to pay the assessment fees. Okay, you see that. And here's where it gets interesting. This guy, Zach Villa, Zach, I think you and I trained at the same gym. It's important we talk because if you see, when you connect the dots from Summit Ridge to Skylark, this story is actually way bigger than one big failed mansion.
Plans, they submit them to the city for permits. I'm going to guess by 2018 is when Hadid finally gets approval from everybody to build this house. That also aligns with when Skylark gave him this $31 million loan. But he gets this loan, and this is where things get foggy. It appears that he just completely abandons this project altogether. I cannot imagine why Hadid would just walk away from this project after...
I could imagine he's a loser.
After receiving such an influx of capital. Not only are you needing to fork out tons of cash just to get the house designed and permitted, but then you're going to need to cough up big deposits to your builders and subcontractors to demolish the old house, get the lot graded.
So basically, in a nutshell, in 2018, Hadid finally gets the approval he's been chasing for years, right? That same year, follow me, Skylark hands him a $31 million loan. But here's, I guess, where it gets foggy, because after getting that money, it looks like Hadid just completely lost complete control. So these timelines aren't adding up. The filings don't add up. And honestly, it raises a bigger question. And I hope the FBI and the SEC see this. But where the heck did that $31 million go?
Get lumber and trusses ordered to start building the new house, all of that. I know that the cost of construction in Beverly Hills is way higher than other parts of the world. It's like double the cost of how much it costs to build out here in Scottsdale. But still, it seems like Hadid borrowed way more money than he needed to get the ball rolling on this house on Summit Ridge. I mentioned the name Zach Vela earlier. Remember, Zach is the guy behind Skylark Capital, who is the company who lent Hadid $30 million on that Summit Ridge project. Well, it turns out Zach Vela also lent Hadid $40 or $50 million on his Beverly Crest development. This property was wrapped up in bankruptcy as well, and there was a big lawsuit involved where Vela was trying to get his money back through the bankruptcy, but as of like 3 days ago, that suit has been...
Look, I get it that building in Beverly Hills costs way more than anywhere else. I get it. I understand. Okay. Probably double what it costs out there in Scottsdale, right? Where this guy is doing this property report. But even then, the numbers just simply don't make sense. Hadid borrowed way more money than he would have realistically needed to finish this project. So either, okay, I raised this question, either he was massively over leveraged or the money went somewhere else. Where did this money go? And it probably went somewhere it shouldn't have. So that's the part I guess nobody's talking about.
Settle as well. The backstory on this one is pretty similar to the other ones, except it's just supersized.
Teenagers are building businesses.
All right. Unfortunately, guys, I should have charged this laptop. It's about to end, so I'm going to finish it. But just, I just want to say, think for yourself about Mohamed Hadid's virtue signaling like a complete loser. Please subscribe to my channel and page. If you like this video, please share it with a friend and subscribe. Thank you so much.